Hi, welcome back folks, let's carry on with our countdown of 250 plus best C64 games. Beamrider is one of these games that look like nothing but play like a charm. It's a vertically scrolling shoot 'em up in which you're zooming on beams set on the screen and killing anything and anyone that comes your way. Well, you're also avoiding hazards hurrying your way. It looks simple, it sounds simple, but at the pace which the game is going, the number of enemies that show up with each next level, the progression, it's all perfect. Not too easy, not too difficult, but if you're in the market for a fantastic arcade shooter, Beamrider is different enough to feel fresh all throughout. Barbarian to the Dungeon of Drax, aka X of Rage, is a follow-up to the original Barbarian and conceptually a completely different title. While the first Barbarian was a versus fighting game, the second is a flip-screen action-adventure in a brutal, bloody and unhygienic world of Barbarian. Even if this title was not as popular as the first one, mainly because of simplified combat moves, which some saw as a step back, I still consider it a fun adventure in which you get to meet and battle 20 different creatures, avoid hazards and travel through interesting locations. During C64's reign, Thalamus were the masters of action games, and if you saw their name next to a particular title, it nearly always guaranteed that the game would be a fantastic release and a time well spent. And Delta, aka Delta Patrol, puts you in the shoes of a member of an elite squadron of police in the Delta sector, in which aliens and bandits, or space pirates really, attack any ships that dare to enter and you're there to clean it up. Not with a mop or motivational speech, but with use of rapid series of explosive projectiles. All in all, 32 levels, different power-ups and fantastic design make Delta a horizontally scrolling shoot 'em up worth going through at least once. Ace of Aces is great. I mean, you're great too, but Ace of Aces is, well, great in a different way. And it's only great if you like flight combat simulations. But it is. It is set in the World War II, and you're flying Royal Air Force's Mosquito, a long-range fighter bomber. And yes, you can bet your sweet ass that you'll be doing both. And a lot. Fighting and bombing, that is. Your plane is equipped with rockets, bombs and a cannon, and you'll partake in series of different historically inspired missions, including, but not limited to, dogfighting with German planes, shooting down of enemy bombers, and bombing of U-boats, trains and other strategic locations. What's more, you do all of that by yourself from one of 5 plane views: cockpit, left and right wing, navigational map and bomb bay. Pitfall 2 Lost Caverns is a proper sequel and still an action-adventure platformer. This time, it is set in Machu Picchu in Peru, and your mission is to rescue Quick, Claw the Cat, your niece Rhonda, and find the Raj Diamond. You can still run, jump over hazards and climb up and down ladders, but you can also ascend via balloons and swim. It may not seem like much, but given considerably more varied environments and their verticality than previously, even these two small changes make for a notable difference. Still, many people believed that all of that was too little and that was below their expectations and failed to change and improve enough. Was that the case though? Let me know in the comments below. You could say that Into the Eagle's Nest is just a Gauntlet clone. And you'll be right. That said, it's not just a Gauntlet clone, as it does some things in its own way. It is not set in the fantasy times though, but during World War II, and each of the 8 levels has its own specific objective. You must also collect explosives, ammo, treasures and rescue POWs, so while Into the Eagle's Nest is a clone, it's a well-made, playable and a unique feeling one. In Park Patrol, you play as Park Ranger, and since I'm European, the concept of Park Ranger is rather alien to me. But what I do know though is what you do in the game. You must find and collect trash, solve the bottles, cans and such, and rescue drowning swimmers. It sounds simple, but it's anything but, as the animals that you're supposed to be caring for are all for some reason out to get you. Now, I know how it sounds like, terrible, but it's actually not. The concept is basic, and so is the gameplay, but the playability, and especially with a friend, is quite high. The Last Ninja Free is The Last Ninja. Free. And just The Last Ninja. And you playing as him must once again face evil Shogun Kunitoki, but this time in Tibet among its elusive temples. And if you're wondering what is Shogun doing in Tibet, well, he's there to corrupt Buddhist temples and destroy the source of powers of all ninjas. Well, it's only you, you're the last one, but the power has to come from somewhere, and he aims to destroy it. It's still an action-adventure title in which you're fighting numerous enemies and completing environmental puzzles. It's worth noting that most sprites are high-res, making for a very attractive presentation. Bionic Commando is based on the arcade original, and it's an action-adventure platformer. It depicts the conflict between two opposing blocks, and one of them, the evil one, is aiming to build a weapon capable of completely annihilating the other. So, the good one, Federation, sends their best operative to find and destroy the plans for the weapon. He is captured, however, so the second one is sent after. One that's equipped with Bionic arm gun. It shoots, it allows you to grapple and pull yourself to higher platforms or swing over chasms and even pick up items. Bionic Commando is fun, but also so difficult that it borders on being annoying. R-Type is one of the most important and well-known horizontally scrolling shooter maps. It's also one of these that always put me in my place, reminding me how much I suck at the genre, regardless of the platform I was playing it on. Other than the series of weapon upgrades and tons upon tons of beautifully designed enemies, what R-Type was mostly known for was that it allowed you to shoot in two modes, either fast but weak burst shots or slow but charged up mega shot. Oh, and attachable upgrades to your ship which cling to either front or the back of it. They can be used as weapons and also as a bumper to deflect enemy bullets. HR Giger-inspired presentation, fast and challenging action and a perfect conversion from the arcades made R-Type a hit on C64. I love the Newzealand Story, on C64, on Amiga, on NES, Genesis and in the arcades too. Was I any good at it? Hell no, I sucked at all of them, royally no less. But I always had fun, and that's what games are all about, right? It's an action platformer in which playing as Tiki, a tiny, cute kiwi bird, you must save your girlfriend Fifi and your other kiwi brethren too, because all of them have been kidnapped by a large blue leopard seal. Yeah, you heard that right. Yes, it is so silly. And yes, it is also incredibly playable and you'll love your time at it. So, you run around as this cute little chick, shooting arrows at any and all enemies and saving other kiwis. That's the gist of it, and that's what will keep you coming back for more. And music. Music too. I grew up with Goonies. Well, truth be told, by the time I saw it first as a kid, it was already a rather old movie, but I always loved it. The evil family of Fractalus, the hidden pirate treasure, Data, the truffle shuffle, it was all fantastic and an adventure like no other that I craved back then. And while C64 had its limitations, the Goonies that released on it, a puzzle platforming mixture no less, do a pretty decent job following the plot of the movie. And since you can play it in co-op multiplayer, Goonies really felt like that adventure that I never had. Donald's Duck Playground was one of my all-time favorites, despite it being actually an educational title. The idea here is to partake in one of 4 jobs to earn money that can be later on spent on equipping of your own playground with various attractions. And while it is the goal of the game, the work that you do is actually what I most liked about it. So you can be sorting vegetables at the grocer, you can be putting away toys in a toy store, you can be sorting cargo at the airport, and even switching trucks into correct order so that the cargo would be delivered between locations. It sounds boring, I know, but it played rather well, and earning these few cents or a couple of bucks at most was always rather rewarding, way more than designing of that titular playground. Aztec Challenge is actually true to its title. It is set in and around Aztec Temple, and it is a set of challenges arranged in a linear fashion that you have to complete for points. There are 7 of these trials, and they range from running towards the temple and dodging thrown spears, through running through the temple and avoiding hazards by slowing down or jumping, and crossing tiled floor, skipping between booby traps, all the way to the running over the bridge and jumping over differently wide gaps in it. Each of the challenges is a bit different, and all are fun, even if rather demanding. Wonder Boy in Monsterland is an incredible coin-up conversion and a really good game at that too. It's an action-adventure game with some role-playing elements, so a considerable sidestep from the original's strictly arcade platforming roots. That said, it is well made, looks decent, and plays as it did in the arcades, so you'll be hard-pressed to find a better similar game on C64. Evil Dragon and his army of monsters attacked, turning Wonderland into Monsterland. And you, playing as TomTom again, have to once more take it upon yourself to defeat the villains and bring back peace to the once beautiful land. And you will, trust me, because it's a blast. Spy vs. Spy 2 The Island Caper is a great follow-up to the original and also a two-player action-adventure racer. Say what? Did he just said racer? I did, and it kinda is. You're racing against the opponent, hopefully controlled by a friend and not a CPU, to collect all the necessary items and leave the doomed island before the timer runs out, because when it does, the island explodes. Spy vs. Spy games are some of the most fun multiplayer experiences that you can have on C64, and also games I personally never really enjoyed. Don't let it sway your opinion though, it's on me, and most people love them. Druid is another of those one or two player gauntlet-like games with a twist. It's a top-down fantasy action shooter in which you must destroy 4 magic skulls hidden over 8 dungeon levels. The game is naturally chock full of enemies attacking you from all sides and at all times, but you have 3 offensive spells to dish out justice with: water, fire and electricity. But all of them have limited, well, ammo, there's no mana so I don't really know what else to call it, charges, units, whatever. You also have 3 utility spells of invisibility, summon golem and skull, with that last one being the only one worth explaining and working like a bomb in most arcade games, so clearing the screen of all enemies. There are shops in the dungeons too, and they sell charges and keys, but you can only purchase 1 item in each shop. Who Dares Wins 2 is a top-down shoot-em-up that is a modified version of the first game, with all the similarities to arcade game Commando removed because of the legal reasons. So once again you're alone, and once again you have to find and capture 8 enemy outposts, killing anything and everything that dares to enter the screen, all the while saving POWs. While it could be argued that it's the same game, and it really is, the removal of anything legally questionable and then subsequent replacement of it with new assets and level layouts made Who Dares Wins 2 feel like its own thing. Ikari Warriors is another of those games that had 2 releases on Commodore 64. The American one, which was universally considered to be one of the worst games on the system, failing at everything: its presentation, controls, enemy AI and gameplay. And this European, that released 2 years later and is considered today as one of the best shooters and arcade conversions to ever land on the little piece that could. Now sure, along with content and gameplay, the difficulty arrived under our roofs too, and it was rather brutal. But it was not unfair. And with a bit of practice and better skills than I could ever master, Ikari Warriors can easily become your favorite shmup on the system. Talking about incredible ports, Arkanoid on C64 is my most favorite version of the game, apart maybe from the one on the Amiga. But I don't consider the other one better, just equally as good. And yes, I am aware that it looked much better, but given C64's hardware capabilities, it was an incredible game, provided you played it with a mouse. With joystick? Well, let's just say that a lot in these breakout-like games depends on the controller. All stages and gameplay mechanics have naturally been converted to C64, but the game never really slows down, handling it all like a boss. Zorro is probably the first action-adventure game with puzzling elements that I've ever played, and one that makes you think out of the box and try different things to complete your tasks, like getting a guard drunk to then use his huge belly as a trampoline to get to the impossible-to-reach platforms. And in that, it reminds me of another Datasoft game that we've covered today, Goonies. It too calls for creativity in puzzle solving, but also adds combat element in the form of fencing with the Colonel Garcia's goons. And all of that to save your beloved. Spy Hunter is another of those car combat games in which you drive continuously upwards, never ever turning left or right and always only pushing ahead. You're also a titular spy hunter, as in spy who's hunting buddies and not a person that hunts for spies, cause that would be a counterintelligence agents. And you are battling with countless motorized enemies by either pushing them off the road, shooting at them, or with additional pickups of oil slick, missiles and smoke screen. Every now and then you get to jump from your car into a speedboat, and while the setting changes considerably, the gameplay mechanics don't and still follow the same original arcade formula. Silkworm is a punishingly demanding horizontally scrolling shooter for up to 2 players and a devilishly addictive game at that, meaning that you'll keep failing playing as either copter or a jeep, and yet you'll also keep coming back for more. Kinda like Goku did when fighting Frieza before he eventually turned Super Saiyan and fried his ass. I really don't know how we got here, but let's get back to Silkworm. It's a fun but tough shooter in which everyone always wanted to play as copter, so whomever was the second one to join had to drive that darn jeep. And I'm not only talking C64 here, but also all the other ports and arcade original too. I easily get bored with shoot-em-ups that don't offer weapon upgrades and constantly evolving environments, challenges and enemies, and that goes for all games in the genre. All but one. Because River Raid is so genius in its simplicity that I feel that adding anything extra to it would upset its inner balance and break the perfect flow of its gameplay. So you're this small jet fighter that keeps flying over the river flowing within the canyon and destroying enemy ships, planes, balloons and sometimes zeppelins and tanks too. There are also refuel points that you can fly over to restock on gas or shoot for extra points. And that's it. You push forward, trying to survive and accumulate points. It's simple, it's addictive, it's great. Mega Apocalypse may not be about our apocalypse per se, but it's about us bringing it to others. So you're a ship captain, as you deserve, and the ship is armed to the teeth. How you deserve your ship to be, being the cool cat captain that you are. Cool cat? What am I, 90? Anyway, your mission, should you load up the game and accept it, is to find any and all planets and destroy them. Why, you may wonder? Because points. So Mega Apocalypse is the omnidirectional rotating shooter and it's rather good. Also points. Did I mention points yet? Yeah, points. Tons of points. Not many people know this, or not many people care, potato tomato, but the Great American Cross-Country Road Race is actually Enduro from the Atari 2600, but polished and raised to the advanced and modern at the time capabilities of powerful home systems such as C64. In short, you're in a speedster and you have to race through America, passing through its major cities in a limited time. You are, however, able to choose your own route through the country, customizing the experience and thus raising game's replayability. There are naturally different weather and road conditions, different times of day, highway patrols and limited fuel, and you'll need to keep all of that in mind. Oh no, no, come on, no. The dictator has taken over the fortress on the Kunlun Island, and you know what that means. No armies, mercenaries or heroes can take it back, there's just you. And that means that you're gonna be late for dinner. Again. So to take it back, you'll need to go through 6 unique arcade sequences. You'll reconnaissance the area, then move your fleet avoiding the enemies or enemy mines and torpedoes. Next are the anti-aircraft guns, which will man alone like a boss, shooting down enemy planes one by one, just to follow it up with a similar attack on their fleet. After that, you'll need to maneuver to the shore and then protect the tanks. And finally, you'll destroy the fortress, killing the dictator within. And all of that to eat cold dinner. Cabal is a third-person action shooter similar to Operation Wolf that we've spoken about before, with a difference that you actually see a soldier and have to actively dodge the enemy fire. I mean, there are more differences obviously, but they're less relevant and I don't feel like touching them here. Why? Just because. It's also a port from the arcades in which you and a friend can both rush through 5 huge levels filled with bodies and teach them the important lesson of the difference between being alive and unalive by making sure that they're the second and not first. Naturally with your trustworthy rifles, pickups in the form of shotguns and machine guns or grenades. If possible, always do it with grenades. Note that down. The villain known as, and I shit you not here, Dominator, is planning to ignite the Third World War, and you, playing as a pair of federal agents, have to stop him. Pity, however, that while you're racing after him trying to catch or gun him down, whichever you manage to do first really, that all the other road users seems to be bent on stopping you. Well, not all, just the cops, jets and copters, also trucks too. So yeah, you know what, all suddenly doesn't sound that too far from the truth. You also need to avoid road hazards like roadblocks and mines, keep the fuel consumption in mind and use your turbo strategically. Turbocharge may not be an easy game, but boy oh boy is it fun and good looking. While I believe that the original Pac-Man and especially Miss Pac-Man were amazing games and really needed no changes to their formulas, Pac-Mania is still a fantastic port of the arcade original and as perfect recreation of it as it was possible to achieve on C64. Sure, the viewpoint is a bit more restrictive and the ghosts are really fast, but it lost none of its charm and addictive pellet munching mechanics. So, if you enjoyed the classics or played this in the arcades years ago, you'll like it on Commodore's tiny monster of a system too. You know what's worse than being a psychopath? Being a psychopath genius that's dreaming about world destruction. And Elvin is just that. Also, he's one letter away from Elvis, so chances are that it's this that was the catalyst for his insanity. I mean, how do you follow a legend? The king even. Anyway, Elvin is scheming to destroy what we know and hold dear, and you're the only one to stop him. So, you'll need to avoid his security robots, search for his towers, assembling a musical code sequence to unlock his central control room and stop the impending madness. Despite being in control of the astronaut and not a spaceship, Dropzone is basically a Defender clone. And as Defender-like games on C64 go, this one's better than the original, even if the astronaut that you control is uncomfortably tall when compared to the ship in the classic. It's a horizontally scrolling shooter taking place on the surface of the Jupiter's moon. Your mission, aside from killing any and all enemies that you come across, is to save the scientists and bring them back to your base. And to do so, you have a jetpack, laser, cloaking device, 3 smart bombs and a pardon from your current president, as you've been previously jailed for being criminally good looking. Hunter's Moon is a unique top-down, always scrolling shooter. Your ship is sucked into a black hole and spit out through its rear end. Digested, one would say really, and emerges somewhere in the middle of the uncharted space. Space filled with weird respawning biomechanical cells no less. So, to come back home, you'll need to travel through 16 systems, defeating enemies and speeding for the portals within allotted time. Each system, however, contains a different kind of a hive of enemies and different puzzling and shooting challenges. It's finally time for Commando, one of the most famous C64's top-down shooters and a fantastic port from the arcades, even if it only had 5 out of 8 of coin-ups levels. While it's a fun game to sink some time in, it actually has nothing to do with the movie of the same title, and it was probably more well-known on Commodore because of Rob Hubbard's electric soundtrack than its gameplay. I honestly don't know if there's any background story to Commando, and if there was, I've long forgotten it. But you play as a lone soldier, Super Joe, who's, well, super, and with just a handful of grenades and a standard issue rifle, you will take down the entire enemy army. Because you know, you really are that good. Commodore's Ghostbusters start with synthesized speech. Just listen. Ghostbusters! I know that it's nothing special today, but in 1984 on an 8-bit home system with as little as 64 kilobytes of RAM and 1 MHz CPU, it really was. To offer you perspective, your current PC probably has between 4 and 24 cores, so these individual CPU brains in it, and each likely runs between 2000 and 5000 MHz at boost. So, even if we assume that it's only 8 cores and 3500 MHz, that gives us roughly 28,000 times faster system. And it doesn't even take into account technological and architectural advances that they have over that old MOS chip. Anyway, the game is naturally based on the movie of the same title and see you playing as the squad of scientific misfits, driving around the town and saving it from ectoplasm monstrosities. I say town, but I mean New York. You get to buy your own ghost-busting car, equip it with different pieces of gear, and if you do well, even eventually face the Gozer. Flimbo's Quest is a horizontally scrolling platformer and a pretty decent, even if not overly creative game. Mad scientist Franz Dendroff has created a machine that drains life energy from his victims to infinitely extend his own. It's a rather dick move, but with a name like his, he must have had a difficult life. Anyway, when he kidnapped Pearly, Flimbo's girlfriend, he took it a bit too far, and our pixel-made hero decided that enough's enough, put on his baseball cap and head off to teach Dendroff a lesson, in both manners and hair and scalp hygiene. Gyruss is a fantastic port from the arcades and my all-time favorite shooter on the C64. I love everything about it. Its gameplay, music and sounds, so no, not everything actually, I'm indifferent about its presentation. But other than that, it's definitely my fave. It's a uniquely designed game in which your ship moves around the screen, flying inwards and defeating waves of incoming enemies that too fly around the quote-unquote orbit of your travel path. And you go from planet to planet of our solar system killing aliens that invaded them. So, while you're having fun, you're also saving humanity. Win-win. Before all the amazing point-and-clickers and Star Wars-themed shooters, LucasArts made Rescue on Fractalus, a sci-fi futuristic first-person flight combat simulation that was way better than it had any right to be on a lowly C64. Evil aliens known as Jaggi had invaded Fractalus, a lone planet at the edge of the known universe. Your mission in each of the levels of the game is to locate and rescue stranded pilots, all the while fighting off gun turrets, flying saucers and the Jaggi. All that said, Rescue on the Fractalus was not best known for its explosive gameplay, but for the use of fractal technology to create believable mountain ranges and canyons on the planet and how realistically all instruments on the ship behaved. I really don't know how to properly pronounce it. Is it Do, or Do, or Do-H? Whatever, I'm going for the silent H. So Arkanoid Revenge of Do is a sequel to the original Brickbreaker and a really well-made port from the coin-ups. The evil Do has returned once again, seeking vengeance on the ship that defeated it in the original. And yes, the ship being your paddle. I know the story is really unnecessary, so once again you must face the evil entity and its countless space bricks to save the day. If you've played the original Arkanoid and are not done with the formula just yet, you'll know exactly what to do here. And given its technical excellence and fun gameplay loop, you'll also have a blast. We've covered Miner 2049er already, so it's time for its sequel, Bounty Bob Strikes Back. And with as strong title as this one, solid and improved gameplay loop and a bit more welcoming difficulty level, BBSB makes for a much more enjoyable game than its predecessor. You still have to go through series of levels by walking over platforms thus lighting them up. The difference to the first game, however, is that when you die, lit platforms and killed enemies do not reset, making BBSB a considerably easier title and one that's not punishing for no reason. Tusker is a side-scrolling action-adventure game and one of the most cinematic-feeling experiences on C64. In fact, I think it looks way better and more realistic than its cartoony ports to Amiga and Atari ST, which were considerably more powerful 16-bit systems. Your father, a famous and well-regarded adventurer, went to Africa to find the mysterious elephant graveyard. That was a little while ago though, and since then he seems to have disappeared. So you put on your best indie-like outfit and embark on a quest to find him. While looking for him, you'll visit many different locations and fight with natives, most of which seem to be pissed off about something all the time, seemingly for no reason. Maybe their streaming subscriptions have been cancelled? Hard to tell. You also do some environmental puzzling, and overall, we have a lot of fun. Decathlon, not to mistake it with Daley Thompson's Decathlon, which was a much worse game, is one of the few exceptions to my I don't like sports games rule, because I do enjoy multi-event multiplayer games. And this one alone is responsible for at least 4 or 5 of my joysticks meeting their demise from all the maniacal waggling. Either way, with 3 friends around and some drinks, the 10 disciplines that the Decathlon offers will be worth all these destroyed controllers, as that's how much fun you'll be having. Now, to be clear and not upset the gods of YouTube, I'd like to clarify that I naturally meant non-alcoholic drinks. Wink wink, nudge nudge. Oh my god, cringe. Turbo Outrun is a follow-up to original Outrun and also a port from the arcades. It is technically a much better conversion than the first game, and gameplay-wise, one of the better racers on C64. It's fast, it looks great, sounds fantastic, and you'll have a blast turboing your way through the diversified locations, chasing that constantly ticking down timer and trying to reach the checkpoint before it runs out. If I could have one complaint about Turbo Outrun on C64 though, it would be that the car that you're driving seems unnaturally wide when compared to all the other ones on the road. Nebulous, aka Towel Toppler, is a one-of-a-kind platformer and a true C64's capabilities show-off. I mean, I know that it released on other systems too, but I always felt that it looked and played particularly impressive on Commodore's Little Monster. You play as Pogo, a green bipedal armless creature that's on a self-assigned mission to topple 8 towers by placing BOMBs on their top floors. So, you always start at the very bottom and work your way up, killing or avoiding enemies and hazards. The most impressive thing about Nebulous at the time was its presentation that had your character placed firmly in the middle of the screen, moving left or right, and the tower behind him turning clockwise or counterclockwise, making for a very convincing 3D-like effect. While most people consider Jumpman Junior to not be as good of a game as the original, I disagree. I always had a lot of fun with it, and it was one of the first C64 games that I've ever played. So yeah, a bit of a personal bias may be the reason here, but it's also a decent title in its own right. Your goal in each level, composed of platforms, ladders and ropes, is to get to all the BOMBs and disarm them before the timer runs out. To make things more challenging and interesting too, stages feature different hazards, and if you stand in one spot for too long, a bullet will be shot at you from outside of the screen, so to survive you have to keep moving. Sitting is for losers, jumping is for Jumpman, or something down those lines. And to be completely transparent here with you, I say so while I'm myself installed in my comfortable desk chair. But of course, that Ivan Iron Man Stewart Super Off-Road is a port from the arcades. And you know what? It's actually a pretty good one. Provided that you like top-down multiplayer racers, that is. Up to 3 of you can cram at a single machine, 2 using joysticks and 1 a keyboard, and compete in this crazy off-road racing bonanza, elbowing one another like maniacs, all the while upgrading your cars between races. I wouldn't say that Super Off-Road is as good as Micro Machines, but C64 never had a port of that other one, so this is as good as we get. Supercycle is a motorcycle racing game, and while not hang-on perhaps, it is still very similar to it. Despite there being other bikers on the road, however, you are not racing against them, but against time. I'm not gonna lie to you, while I enjoy an occasional playthrough of Supercycle, I prefer races against other vehicles to a particular finish line, rather than an uphill battle with the ticking down clock. It's a personal thing though, and shouldn't really influence your opinion about it. So, make sure to check it out, as it may actually be your new favorite C64 racer. Uridium is one of the most well-known and generally beloved shoot-em-ups on C64 that over the years garnered a cult following. For me, it's a bit too difficult, but I was really not made for Twitch shooters. The solar system has been invaded by the evil aliens that want to harvest it for all its minerals. Which kinda sucks, as your home planet is where you live and also where you get your steaks, burgers and soups. And salt is a mineral too, and it makes everything taste better. So, to prevent the impending doom, you head off in your fighter to face the enemy dreadnoughts, defeat their defenses, and then enter them and blow up their reactors. I really loved Ghosts and Goblins in the arcades, and C64 version was not bad. It was not great either, given technical limitations of the system and that only some of the levels were moved to the machine, but what was there played well and looked pretty decent. The difficulty remained unchanged from the original too, making for a rather punishing but true to the original experience. All that said, there is a far better version of Ghosts and Goblins on C64, and it's a 2015 fan remake that not only contains all the levels but looks much better too. But since this list has its cutoff point set to 1995, so a year before C64 was finally discontinued, I couldn't have included it in the video. Sorry. Platoon was one of the most important cinematographic experiences of the 80s, perhaps of all time, so it was pretty clear that the game based on it had to be made. and I'm happy to say that Platoon on C64 is pretty darn sweet and follows the movie as much as it was possible on such a small system. So it is composed out of numerous different sections, from side-scrolling journey through a jungle avoiding traps and ambushes, through the first-person view enemies filled 3D tunnel scrolling, all the way to the raid on a bunker and a grenade battle with a final boss. It was not often that the games were as varied in their styles in the 80s, and Platoon definitely benefited from being one of the few. Another one in the books, and there's 2 left to go. And the 2 will comprise of the top 100 best games on C64, so make sure to come back not to miss it. And the way of making sure that you get notified is not only subscribing but also hitting that bell, as it lets YouTube know that you want to see more of that kind of a content. So please, do so. It helps me too, and more than you know. All that said, I'm done for today, so take care of yourself and I'll see you soon.